Senator Johnson, do you want to...
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Mr Nichols, for coming along.
No
You said you had some military experience. What was that?
I was a member of the Royal Australian Engineers.
Sapper?
Yes, indeed.
Very good. And how long were you in for?
Army Reserve for 2006, 2007, up to and including 2011, and I believe now I'm still on active standby.
So reservist roughly since 2006?
That's correct.
Very good. Now, you commenced work in September 2013 with the company.
Yes.
When did you part ways with them?
I stopped working on the 11th of June this year, citing health reasons.
So you sought to terminate your employment with Wilson's because of your health?
Not so much terminate. I sought to go off on sick leave.
Right.
But subsequently I have terminated my employment with Wilson Security.
You terminated it?
That's correct.
When did you do that?
Approximately the 3rd of August.
3rd of August?
Yep.
And are you in litigation with Wilson's?
Not at this point.
Do you have a claim against Wilson that you are pursuing? Has there been an exchange of correspondence between your solicitors and Wilson's?
There has.
Seeking some recompense?
Seeking them to abide by their requirements to provide me with rehabilitation and possible other employment, yes.
And they've refused to do that?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. They have refused to do that?
Just a minute, please, Senator.
Yeah, I object to answering any further question on that line. It's irrelevant.
I respect your view in that regard entirely, and I'm very pleased not to continue other than to ask, is it fair to say, as you sit here today, there is an issue that you require legal advice on between yourself and Wilson's?
Yeah, I'll object to answering that as well.
Okay, fine.
Pretty straightforward question. I mean, the answer's obvious. I don't really know why you would object to answering.
With respect to the committee, he has a compensation claim going. It's irrelevant to what's going on in the room.
No, that's for us to decide what's irrelevant. It's just a statement of fact, isn't it? There is
No, but there has been a link by Wilson's to say that he's making everything up.
No, we're not,
We've seen it.
going.
We've
It's
read
a
it.
fair enough question for Senator Johnson. If you don't want to answer it, the conclusion is drawn anyway.
We don't want to answer it, and everyone should know that there's a pile of people lining up around the corner behind Mr Nichols. He's the first. Now, the honourable member for Dixon said this morning there's one rogue person who's got a beef with Wilson's. Well, he's not one, he's the
the matter
first.
that's here before
And there
us.
could be 25 people by the time we're finished.
Look,
So let's make that clear.
Senator Johnson's happy for your answer.
Happy for the witness to retain his confidentiality with respect to matters of a legal nature that he has you sitting next to him for.
Well, he's got a claim going.
Right.
He's
He
seen a
admits he's
document.
got a claim going. Did you?
He has made a claim upon the company.
Yep.
It is being pursued.
Yep.
And it will be in the Supreme Court of Queensland in the near future. And that's
Supreme
all we
Court of
want to say for it.
Queensland. All right, that's fine. May I ask, since when has that claim been maintained?
I didn't bring my file because I knew this question had come up, but I'm guessing about the 10th of August.
10th of August, okay. Now, Mr Nichols, have you had contact with any members of this committee concerning Nauru?
Direct contact with any members? No.
No. Has your lawyer had direct contact or any contact at all with members of this committee?
Well, you don't know.
I don't know. I can't answer that, I'm sorry.
Well, Mr Day, do you want to answer that?
No, I don't want to answer it.
You don't want to answer it?
Why should I? I'm not here.
No, I'm just asking the question.
I'm his advisor. I'm not a witness. Just like Mr Packer, I appear reluctantly.
Well, you're his agent, aren't you?
I'm not his agent, I'm his assistant. I'm not here to give evidence.
Okay, right.
Clarify, if he's not providing evidence, Chair, what is he providing?
All right. So you decline to answer the question as to whether you've had contact with any member of this committee other than at a hearing.
Me personally, myself,
Yeah. Or your solicitor on your behalf.
I certainly have not.
No. Do you know if your solicitor has on your behalf?
That I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. Now, you say that, and your evidence is that waterboarding was conducted throughout the facility. Are they your words or your lawyer's words?
Oh, give me a break. What's the purpose of that question?
Mr. Day,
honestly,
Mr.
that's
Day,
offensive.
excuse me,
That's
Mr. Day,
offensive.
you can only have one go at this. If you're here to advise your client, then I suggest that that's what you do.
We object to
and
the
do not
question.
you advise your client and do not respond directly to the senator's questions. You can't pick and choose which ones you want to answer. So the question is to Mr. Nichols. You are free to advise your client on how to answer it.
Can you repeat the question, please?
In paragraph 1 of your submission, the words appear, waterboarding of asylum seekers throughout the facility. Are they your words or are they the words of your solicitor? Harry's a very good lawyer, isn't he?
Okay, certainly. Yep, I'm happy to answer the question. I provided my solicitor with information and then he drafted a letter which was then sent to me. I provided corrections to that letter and it was then provided to the committee.
Okay. So, what do you understand by the term waterboarding?
Waterboarding.
Waterboarding.
Yep.
Waterboarding.
I believe it to be where a person is restrained, a cloth is placed over their face and mouth, and then water is poured over them.
Over their face.
That's correct.
Have you ever personally witnessed that in any time during your employment with Wilson's?
You've already answered. Just say I've already answered.
I've already answered that question previously to the other senator.
For my benefit, because I did receive a phone call at the psychological moment, obviously, could you just repeat your answer?
No, I have not personally witnessed the actual event, but I have witnessed what I firmly believe to be the actions after.
Which was the black spit.
So you've seen people with water on them come from a building?
And yeah, water coming out of their mouth, coughing up water.
Right, okay. Okay. And how many times did you observe this?
As previously stated, 2 or 3 times.
And approximately during the period September 2013 to the 11th of June, can you identify when those periods were?
You're asking me to remember something that occurred and wanting specific dates? Is that...
Yes, please.
It would be 2014. The exact dates I couldn't give you.
Okay. Now, why have you used the expression throughout the facility? I'm sorry, Mr Nichols, I don't understand why you need to get advice. This is your submission. I don't understand why you need to have someone give you the words to answer my question.
No, Commissioner, because I'm here to advise it. So we're getting the question, we're getting the answer.
Okay. Well, we're getting your answer, Mr
No,
Day.
we're
That's
not.
the
We're not
problem.
getting my answer at all. And I really wish you would stop this.
Asking questions at a hearing.
Okay, so by throughout the facility,
Yes.
I'm referring to Bravo compound.
Bravo compound.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that sense, throughout the facility, may have been a bad choice of words,
Okay.
but certainly throughout the compound, Bravo compound.
So throughout the facility means just Bravo compound,
In this sense, yes,
and we have a number of other compounds in the facility.
that's correct, Senator.
Could you just tell me what the other compounds are, please?
Yep, certainly. So there's Alpha compound,
Yep.
Bravo compound, Charlie, Delta, that's at RPC2, and then down at RPC3, Area 1, Area 3, Area 9, the SAFs area.
So there's about 8 or 9 other areas in each of the 2 broader areas of the camp.
There's 4 areas in RPC2, and at RPC3 there's I think 5 or 6.
All right. So you wish to withdraw the expression throughout the facility, do you?
You've clarified it.
Yeah, maybe clarify rather than withdraw.
All right. Well, are there any other areas in your submission that you wish to clarify which clearly are, may I say, quite misleading as to what the actual factual circumstances were at the time? Because clearly you've said waterboarding of asylum seekers throughout the facility. That's clearly not true, isn't it?
In the sense as in every single compound in that
Yes.
in that facility?
That's right.
No, it is not. It would not be true. It
Okay.
is true that
What
it
else in
occurred.
your submission is not true then?
I'm not sure what you're alluding to.
Well, zipping of asylum seekers to metal beds.
Yep.
This process was using cable ties to secure asylum seeker to a metal bed. Now, you've used plural and singular interchangeably there. How many asylum seekers have you personally seen zip-tied to a metal bed?
Yeah. I have previously answered the question.
Or could you answer it again for me,
No.
please?
No, that's me talking to him. You just overheard me, Senator.
So you don't wish to answer that question?
I've previously answered the question.
Right. You don't wish to repeat the answer?
That's correct.
May I ask why not?
I'm here to.
Intervene at this point. I mean,
Certainly.
basically the witnesses are, required to answer as truthful as they can. So there's no great findings here. I mean, it's quite normal that it'll be cross-examination and, if you only ever worked in Bravo compound, you may well have thought it was the facility. But anyway, if you've got an answer, just answer it truthfully. That's my advice to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Mr. Nichols.
Yeah, okay, so the vast majority of my time on that island was spent working in the Bravo compound. So therefore I can only tell you what I have seen and what I've heard. And most of that is in the Bravo compound.
Okay, so in the Bravo compound, you saw asylum seekers zipped to metal beds?
No,
No.
I did not see them.
Well, that's what you've got written here. I'm just going from what you've told the committee in your submission.
That I have heard that asylum seekers have been zip-tied to metal beds. ERT quite openly bragged about it.
Okay, but you personally, in 2 years, or just under 2 years, have never actually seen that.
I wouldn't engage in that activity, so
No.
I would not.
I firmly agree with you that, and I'm not accusing you of engaging in that, right? But I'm asking what you saw.
What I have seen, as far as people zip-tied to an actual bed, no, I have not seen them zip-tied to a fence. I've seen an individual zip-tied to a fence.
Okay, right. Now just tell me which was, if I might just go back, my last
Do
question.
you want to explore the zip tying to the fence? That might be something you want to ask.
Mr Day,
Well, that's new.
Mr.
and it might be
Day,
relevant.
Mr. Day, please confine yourself to advising your client, and we'll get along much better and much quicker.
Okay.
My last question, Mr. Nichols, and I do thank you for your cooperation, seriously. It's not obviously not easy revisiting these things, but What was the building where you saw the person wet and coughing up water?
This is a tent in Bravo compound.
A tent
Yes.
in Bravo compound?
Yes.
Whereabouts in Bravo compound?
Tent. Well, the actual compound is comprised solely of tents.
Tents. Okay, well, does this tent have an identification?
It'd be tent 11.
Tent 11. So you saw someone coughing up water, wet, coming out of tent 11.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Look, I've no further questions, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr Nichols, for your cooperation.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Hanson-Young or Senator Ludlam or Senator Reynolds seeking to call. We've got about 10 minutes left, 5 minutes each perhaps.
Thank you very much, Chair. And again, I'll just echo the committee's thanks, Mr Nichols, for coming giving testimony. I read the evidence that you provided about some of your accounts and what it was like when you first went to Nauru in, what was it, the 19th of September. And I note there that you said you were there for, one rotation, so that's, 2 weeks?
That's correct.
And then you went away on sick leave?
That's correct.
How long were you away on sick leave for?
1 month.
Okay. And so then you came back to RPC2?
That's correct.
Which was the all-male facility.
Yes, the SAMS facility.
And just to get a sense of what it was like at the time, RPC2, if I recollect correctly, is where there were the detainees who had been involved in the riot the month before you got there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the environment you were in then, it must have been, reading your testimony, you were subject to death threats from the detainees, you know, things about cutting your throat from an Iranian officer and other
correct.
detainees. So is that the sort of environment it was like working there?
It was extremely hostile to begin with, yes.
Yes. So you just said that you saw, so for example, after that, a year after that time in RPC2, was it those same detainees that you saw, you now have clarified that it wasn't across the compound but it was in tent 11?
That's correct.
So would it have been the same population of detainees who you saw?
Yes.
Okay. But you didn't see, so you saw them coming out of, so was it 2 or 3 people on one occasion, or did you see on
No,
2
or three occasions where
coming out of
individuals-
tent, and was it all tent 11 for these 2 or 3 occasions?
Primarily, tent 11 is where Palestinians were housed, and I believe that animosity was directed towards them due to the riot.
Okay, so within that population, obviously, as you said, there were many detainees from many different origins, in the Middle East.
Yes.
And it was obviously a pressure cooker, and they were very violent to you, because you said you had physical attacks against you as well.
Not all of them
No,
were violent, no.
but it was. As
certainly-
you've described it,
Yes.
it was a not a good environment, and it was an environment that you fell sick. That you obviously, when you got there and then afterwards. So would that be a characteristic of your environment?
Yeah, that would be fair, yes.
Okay. So we've heard at least 3 serious allegations from you of things that you said that you, initially we'd understood from your testimony that you witnessed, so waterboarding and zipping, but I now understand that you didn't witness them, but you saw what you thought, or you'd heard second or third hand reports from others. I'm just wondering, while you said that you didn't have access to the whistleblowers hotline because you weren't aware of it, I'm just wondering, given your allegations go back so far, what other steps did you take to report, first of all, these physical acts?
I'd reported these things to my direct supervisor on the ground there.
Yep. But did you take, so I know, for example, there are many other oversight agencies that have been there throughout your time there. So there's been the Commonwealth Ombudsman, you would have been aware that the Moss Review team was there, and so there's been a whole range of others. So did you at any time seek to go outside and report these things that you said that you found horrific?
No, I hadn't, no.
Okay. So it was just that. So the second thing is, so you had all of these things at the time that you'd heard about, you didn't report any further, you didn't take it any further. But then you've got the allegations where you're in the control room, I understand, and you were given incident reports and you were told to shred them.
Yes.
Now, how often did that occur, are you saying?
As I previously said, it could be once or twice a shift, it could be once or twice a week.
Okay. So, and what was the period? What was the period? Because I'd imagine, given, you know, as you said, you didn't want to do it. If it was that traumatic, you'd have some recollection of when it started and when it finished.
The whole period that I worked in that control room.
Okay. So from the first day you were there till the day you left, and how long were you in the control room for?
Approximately 6 months.
Okay. So for 6 months, day after day, you say that you were asked to do something that you knew was wrong, but why did you not? Again, I'm just trying to understand why you didn't seek to report it to anybody else.
It was done at the direction of the Command 3, who effectively is your supervisor.
I'm just wondering, because also how you managed to keep doing that, because I know, you know, being a sort of an army reservist myself, if you're given an unlawful command, the first thing you're taught is you don't abide by it.
Yes.
And you report it. So I'm just wondering, given, you know, your service in the Army Reserves, why you stayed there and why you kept doing it. If it occurred, I'm just trying to understand, Mr. Nichols.
Okay. I did it, as I said, at the direction of my supervisor. And whether it was right or wrong, I was following what he said. And I take on board what you said about an unlawful command, but this is a totally different situation. This is not the military. I did as instructed to fulfil my requirements for my employment. I followed my employer's direction.
But you weren't, you know, you're saying, okay, that's not a military environment, so you weren't forced to stay there. I'm just wondering if this occurred, and if it occurred as you said, why you voluntarily stayed there for so long and kept doing it and not elevating it to any other level of, you know, any high level of supervision and any of the other multitude of independent supervisors, you know, who are there.
Yeah, that's it. Basically, yeah, for my employment. I did it because it put bread and butter on my table at home. It paid the bills for the money.
So, okay. So you knew. So you say you allege these incidents occurred.
You've got another minute, and then we're going to Senator Hanson-Young and Ludlam.
So are you saying then, just from that answer, that you weren't aware that the Moss Review was on the island and conducting inquiries?
It's possible that they were on the island when I was off.
Okay, so you weren't aware of the Moss Review, so you
I certainly had no interaction with them, no.
and you never made any attempt to do so?
No.
Now, can I just clarify, the footage that you said, who was it, a Mr...
Louis Davies?
Yes.
Yep.
So he was a member of the ERT, you say, and
That's
he
correct.
showed you some footage off his iPhone that he was
That's
issued as
Not an issued iPhone, a personal
Okay,
iPhone.
it was a personal iPhone, so it wasn't an issued GoPro, it wasn't a Wilson's phone, it was his own personal phone.
That's correct.
Okay, and you're saying that you had no evidence, just clarify, that what he did wasn't at direction of Wilson's, it could have well have been off his own bat.
I can't speak for his reasons for doing it.
So what you can testify to is you believe that you saw someone who had evidence or had a picture of Senator Hanson-Young, but there was no indication whatsoever that it was done at the direction of his employer.
Only what he said verbally, and that was that Ranger 1 had told him to film the Senator.
So you have no direct evidence that that was the case?
Only what he's relayed to me. I
you.
suggest you ask him.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Hanson-Young or Senator Ludlam?
I might just recap, if I could, sort of where Senator Reynolds left off. You indicated to us before, Mr Nichols, that there are a couple of other individuals that